This is a third generation Swift, a great starter car for a young enthusiast. The only problem is, new, it costs almost 10 lakh rupees. The fourth generation Swift that was just launched costs slightly more than that. This, on the other hand, is an 8-year-old Swift. It definitely looks like a Swift, it has the same engine, it has similar performance, but crucially, it costs only a third of the price of this car. Welcome to Evo India's Half Price Heroes. In this series, we're going to take you through the process of buying a used car. In each episode, we'll take you through the ins and outs of a particular model, starting with the Maruti Suzuki Swift. You can get a used one of these for around 3 lakh rupees, and that's a definite bargain. Let's get started. The Swift nameplate was first introduced in India almost 20 years ago. The first gen Swift was sold between 2005 and 2011, but that generation is getting a bit long in the tooth and good examples are hard to come by. We are focusing our attention on the second gen Swift sold between 2011 and 2017. These are easy to find in the used market and are still new enough to be daily driven and economical to maintain. The third gen Swift packs in a lot more tech, but being a Maruti, it holds on to its value really well, which is why the second generation Swift is the sweet spot for an enthusiast on a budget. So the second generation Swift came with two engine options. There was the 1.2 litre petrol engine that we are driving and a 1.3 litre diesel, which is now out of production. Now the petrol engine, as far as engines go, is really quite something. It's smooth, it's refined, it's eager to rev, and with 86 bhp and 114 Newton meters of torque on tap, well, it's quite swift. Remember, it only has like a ton to pull around, so performance is actually really good even in today's world. Stick the car into second, ring out the engine, and this thing can put a huge smile on your face. The diesel engine Swift offered similar performance but was a lot more fuel efficient. So if you plan on doing a lot of miles, then it might still be worth considering. However, in terms of reliability, performance and ease of maintenance, the petrol engine would be my pick. Don't forget that the petrol was rated for up to 18 kmpl in our conditions. Once you've chosen the engine, you need to pick the right variant for you. The petrol Swift came in LXI, VXI and ZXI variants, and the diesel on the other hand came in LDI, VDI and ZDI variants. Now the LXI and LDI are the base spec variants, they are completely bare bones. The VXI, like this, got some basics like power windows, central locking, power mirrors, stuff like that. The ZXI and ZDI on the other hand are the most desirable. They got alloy wheels, ABS, dual airbags and some other niceties. Unless you're on a strict budget, the ZXI and the ZDI are the variants that you want to find. The VXI and VDI can do on a stricter budget. Now the Swift is one of the best selling cars in India, so finding a second-hand one shouldn't be too hard. You can check online on used car website, Facebook Marketplace or even Maruti's own True Value website. But if you want a serious bargain, check amongst your friends and relatives, check the WhatsApp groups. You will for sure find someone or the other who knows someone who's selling a Swift. They are just that common. When you're inquiring about the car, make sure you do it over the phone and not via text. When you call the seller, start with, "Hi, I'm calling about the car for sale." Don't mention the name of the car. If the seller on the other end responds with which car, then you know he's a dealer and he's got multiple cars for sale. Alright. Now that you've found the car that you want to look at, what do you need to check when you come and examine a Swift? First things first, let's talk about the exterior. Check the bodywork condition, the overall condition of the bodywork. Start with the paint. Are there any variations in the paint from panel to panel? Next, check the panel gaps. Now the Swift is generally very well built, so panel gaps should be tight, should be consistent all throughout the bodywork. Next, open the doors, open the bonnet, look for signs of overspray under the seams, under the door seals, stuff like that. Next, you should look under the bonnet for signs of accident damage. Now, all accident damage cars are not always problematic, but given the amount of Swifts on the market, if you're unsure about the vehicle's history, it's just best to walk away. Now, it's easy to get carried away when you're behind the wheel of a potential purchase, but don't pay attention because the interior has a lot to tell you about the history of the car. For instance, take a look at the gear knob, at the steering wheel, at the pedals. Does the wear on them correlate with the mileage showing on the car? Also check under the carpets, check if they're damp, check if there's rust hidden underneath the carpets. Take a look under the seat covers, take a look at the head lining. This can all indicate how a vehicle has been used and the true mileage of the car. While you're at it, also check all the electrical accessories in the car. First of all, check the air conditioning. Is it working properly? Is it blowing cold? Check the stereo, check the speakers. Check all the electrical functions like the windows, the mirrors, the horn, the lights, all of them. Make sure they're functioning correctly. When face to face with the seller, ask as many detailed questions as you can. Some might feel a little hesitant in these situations, but gathering as much information as possible is crucial to getting the right car. This is also a good way of determining the character of the seller. If he dodges questions or refuses to answer, then it's possible he is hiding something. Ask questions like when was it last serviced, what parts have been replaced, accident history, the reason for the sale, what was the car used for, and also point out all the issues that you spot and press for more answers. Now before you head out onto the test drive, make sure you start up the Swift from cold. Make sure the engine is completely cold. Make sure it doesn't emit any puffs of smoke, whether it idles smoothly. The Swift has a very well-deserved reputation for reliability, but a lack of maintenance can still take a toll on the vehicle. So make sure you check all these things thoroughly before you head out onto a test drive. Another sneaky little tip here. If the car that you're looking at is still in production, then head down to your local dealership and get a test drive. This should give you a good benchmark of what a good example of that car should feel like. Of course, don't tell the dealership that you're not actually planning on buying a car there. Just smile when they offer you coffee and during their presentation, and politely decline when they call you up for a follow-up. One of the most common problems with the Swift of this generation is the clutch. It can wear from anywhere between 45,000 to 75,000 kilometers. So if the car that you're looking at is within that range, you might need a new clutch at some point soon. Second thing to check is the engine mounts. To check that, you can shift into second gear, get on and off the throttle really quickly. If you hear any clunks and thunks from under the bonnet, then the engine mounts are probably on the way out. And finally, when you're on an empty road, check out the brakes. Are they pulling to one side when you brake really hard? Is the ABS engaging? That's only if you have the ZXi or ZDi variant. Also check if the car is making any noises when you brake really hard. Also check the suspension. Is it clunking? Is it thunking? Does it feel loose when you're driving over bad roads? These are all things that you need to inspect when you're test driving the Swift. If the vehicle you're looking at has any of these issues, it's not the end of the world. Maruti service stations are practically everywhere, and Swift parts are generally cheap. If you have access to a lift at your friendly neighborhood workshop like we do, then lift it up in the air and take a good look underneath. So what we're looking for is oil leaks, accident damage, and rust. So it's really important that you get underneath the car and take a good hard look at the things underneath here. For starting off with the engine, looking for oil leaks. It all seems to be dry out here. The radiator seems intact. It's not leaking any fluid. There's no signs of any leakage anywhere here. This also gives you a good view of the brakes. Here you can check the discs, the pads, even the axle boots. It's all visible from here, so it's good to come underneath the car and take a look at all of that. The cross members and the suspension units and everything also can show signs of accident damage, so it's important to take a good hard look at them. Next, you check for rust. Out here in these wheel well arches is where leaves and debris sits, and this can cause rust in the future. So it's important to check for rust all along these frame rails. Moving on to the back, it's important to check these suspension components if everything is in order. The dampers are visible from here, so you can see if they're leaking in any way. It's also important to check the tires, the date code on the tires and the tread. If they are out of date and the tires are wearing from the inside, that means a set of tires is required really soon, and there might be some suspension work which is required soon. Even the silencer, the fuel tank, it's all really visible from here. So you can check for any damage, any rust, anything of that sort. It's very important to bring a car to a workshop, put it on a lift, and take a look underneath before you commit to buying something. This is also a great time to take a good hard look under the bonnet. Check all the fluids, and I mean everything. The engine oil, the dipstick is right here. Take a good look at that. Check the reservoir, check the radiator. Don't open this when it's hot, but you can of course check the reservoir. Make sure the fluid is a bright color. If it's dirty, if it's just transparent, that means it hasn't been changed in a very long time or someone has put water in there. Finally, check the brake fluid. This car in particular has very spongy brakes. So that means the brake fluid is probably on its way out. The fluid here should be golden or a reddish color. It shouldn't be brown. That means it hasn't been changed for a very long time. Brake fluid usually should be changed every couple of years. This car definitely needs it. Finally, a quick pro tip. Open the oil filler cap and take a look inside the engine. If you see a creamy sort of mayonnaise kind of consistency substance inside, run, don't even walk. That means the head gasket is blown and water and oil is mixing inside the engine. That is terrible news. So just run, don't even bother taking the car any further. Also, while you're here, take a good hard look for accident damage. You can check the strut towers, the inner wings, this panel right here. If there is any difference in color or if the panel is bent in any way, if the strut towers are bent in any way, that means there has been accident damage which has been repaired either well or poorly, you don't really know. So it's best to check them really well. While you're at the workshop, also ask them to connect their OBD2 scanner to the car to check for any fault codes. This can give you a good idea of any hidden faults with the car. Many scanners nowadays have the ability to check history of fault codes. So you can even go back and check previous fault codes that were cleared. You can ask the owner questions about why they were cleared, whether the fault was really fixed or it was just cleared to get rid of the light on the cluster. All of these things are really helpful. If you plan on doing this more frequently, it might be worth investing in a pocket OBD scanner which connects to your phone and gives you all the codes right there. Any issues that you do find with the car can be used as a bargaining chip. If you do finally decide to buy the car, in my opinion, it's always good to get it fully serviced. By that I mean change all the fluids, change any consumables that are on the way out, and get a proper alignment. To give you an idea of what commonly replaced parts cost, here's a quick table for your reference. Now I know this looks pretty dull at the moment, but the good thing about buying a used car is you don't have a warranty to void, so you're free to do whatever you like. First thing I would do is invest in a good set of wheels and tires. Now the LXI and VXI like this came with steel wheels, wheel caps, 14-inch wheels, 165 section tires. First point of order would be to get the wheels of the ZXI. Those were 15-inch wheels with 185 section tires. They will enhance the looks of the car and of course the handling as well. You could also go for a set of wheels from the Baleno or the Ignis. They also share the same PCD, so those wheels are a straight swap onto the Swift. If you decide to go the aftermarket route, remember that the Swift Sport sold abroad was sold with 17-inch wheels and 195 section tires. You could fit something like that to your Swift, but you might need to do a little bit of modification to the wheel wells to make sure they don't rub at full travel. If you want to go a bit extreme, then aftermarket suspension kits are available for the Swift. Just make sure that you get them installed from a reputable garage and have them tuned to your liking. If you're seeking more performance from the engine, then the world is your oyster. Everything from a cold air intake to a full-blown turbo kit is available for the Swift. But just make sure that whatever you install on your Swift is street legal in your state. And finally, how much to pay. At the time of making this video, Swift prices range from 2.5 lakhs to 5.5 lakhs. You might find cars for even cheaper, but if a deal seems too good to be true, then it probably is. There is an abundance of Swifts out there, so keep looking until you find the right one which fits into your budget and the best condition possible. There you have it, your in-depth guide on how to buy a Maruti Suzuki Swift without breaking the bank. Always remember, do your research, take your time, and don't be afraid to negotiate. It's your freedom of mobility which is at stake after all. Join us again next time when we'll take you through another icon of the Indian automotive scene. If you like this video, please share it with your friends, leave us a comment, and stay tuned for more videos just like this.